Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to talk about how to find an entry. And for those of you more advanced users, I would suggest not watching this video. This is a video for people just getting started in crypto, looking to make their first purchase, people looking to get started in trading in crypto, and to better understand support and resistance levels and how they offer opportunities to actually get into a coin. So again, we're going to be very high level here. We're not going to dive in, but I want to help you better understand and better read a chart. So in front of us we have stellar lumens, which has been something that's been pretty hot lately, and something that came to our attention in early November. So what I want to do is just kind of walk you through what I see in this chart, and maybe that will help you better be able to read charts in the future. All right, so first thing we're going to notice here is we are on a 2-hour duration here. So that means that every little tick here is representative of 2 hours. So you can change this as close to 1 minute, as much as a month, 4 hours, whatever. Now the difference between those durations there or increments is they provide a better overall understanding of what's happening in the market. There's lots of patterns that develop in the market that people like to trade. If you were to have a pattern that developed at a 1 minute chart compared to a 4-hour chart, there is much more reliability and substance to that 4-hour pattern than, say, a 1 minute pattern. So what you want to do before making any trade is actually look at a few of these different charts. Look at a 1 day chart, a 4-hour chart, a 2-hour, a 30-minute, a 5-minute, just to give you a better understanding of what's happening within the market. So this is stellar, and we're going to back out a little bit here just to get a better idea of what's going on. Let's take a look at 1 year. So if this happens, you're going to go down here and you want to do auto scale. All right, so this is stellar over the last year. Immediately, obviously, you see this massive spike right here, which happened in about a week's time. What that tells me that this thing can run. I mean, it has a lot of upside potential. When this thing spikes, it has the power to really take off. And what we're going to do here is look at the volume. I've turned that off. And volume is a really good indicator of how much staying power a rally has. So you look at this volume, you see it's not that much, but keep in mind that over the course of the last 6 months, cryptocurrency has really come into its own. Specifically, Bittrex wasn't as big of an exchange 6 months ago as it is now. So you start to see bigger volumes currently than in the past. But this is very significant because, as you can see, there's no volume that even is a blip on the radar for the previous part of the year. All right, so I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right, we have some potential upside here. We have a all-time high. Well, let's check the all-time high. That's not necessarily it. Well, it is it. So you have your all-time high up here around. Put this down. It looks like. I actually think it's 45-ish. Okay, so 4,500 satoshis. So for those of you that are new, this chart is lumen in terms of Bitcoin. So if this was trading 1, it would be 1 stellar lumen to 1 Bitcoin. In this case, it's 0.0000785 to 1 Bitcoin. So trading obviously well below the price of Bitcoin, but this gives you an idea of how it relates to Bitcoin. And all right, so we're looking at the chart here. This is the all-time, or this is the full duration, full lifespan of stellar here. And we see that it's not very helpful. So let's get a little more granular. A little more helpful. I mean, so like, we'll go back to that. So what you see is a pretty nice support right around here, right? But that's not really that helpful. We're on a 1 week chart. The difference between this 127 satoshis and 780 satoshis is you getting broke. So not very helpful. So let's lower the duration. We'll go down to 1 day. All right, we're getting a little more helpful here. Now we can actually establish maybe a little more accurate support. I'm going to delete this, and we'll put our support right around here. And what you want to do, you want to get this trend line here. You want to put it at the very bottom, and when you click, hold down Shift, and it will give you a nice straight line. All right, so now we have somewhat helpful support at 267, but it's not going to help you trade. It's going to help you understand some key levels of stellar, and ultimately we can formulate a trade based on having a better understanding. So we're diving layer by layer into this to get a better understanding of where stellar's been over the last year, where it's going now, where key support levels are. All of this will help us gain more information and then decide what is relevant and how we can trade on this. All right, let's dive down another layer. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. 4-hour charts are very handy. One of the better ones to look at to really tell you what's going on, not only in a short duration but in a longer duration here. So, all right, right here, this is what we're seeing. This is resistance. Let me just get a little box here to show you what I'm looking at. All right, this area right here is all resistance. Look at these wicks. They come up here and get pushed right back down. All of this area is resistance. So this is a longer term resistance area. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a trend line up here, and we'll put it right. It's not perfect here, and we'll get more. We'll be able to better fine tune this as we dive deeper, because the charts will get more accurate and more granular. But we'll just put it right about here for now. All right. So that is our resistance. On the other side, our support. Yeah, we could probably adjust that a little bit. Maybe move it up. And we'll leave it there. I mean, you could argue move it up a little bit, but we'll leave it there. So right now we have a support and resistance, right? And for those of you that are unfamiliar with support and resistance, these are areas that tend to have a lot of buyers or a lot of sellers. Now, why does that matter? Well, when a coin is trying to move through these areas, it's going to encounter a lot of resistance on the upside, which means there's a lot of sellers. So you have to have a lot of buying power or a lot of volume to actually move through that area of the market. And on the other side, if a coin is coming down and encounters an area of support, there's going to be a lot of buyers, and there has to be a lot of sellers to move through that area of support. And the market has a long-term memory. You'd be surprised at where the market will find support for various coins. It could have been months ago, years ago, sometimes many years ago. Not really relevant in cryptocurrency because it hasn't been around that long, but don't discount support areas from a year ago or 2 years ago too much. Now, I will say that are more relevant the sooner they are. So if you have a support area that's been pretty consistent over the last month or two, that's much more relevant than a support area of a year or 2 years ago. But always kind of get a good understanding of the landscape here, and that will help you be better educated and make better trades. All right, so now we're getting a little closer to getting some good information here. So let's go down to a 2-hour chart. All right, a little more granular here. Okay, now you're starting to see here's an area of resistance. You see it failed. And what I mean by it failed is like right here, failed. Right here it failed. Both these times it got through, it came back down. So I'm just going to move this down right here for now. Missed it a little bit. All right. So that's a pretty key area in order to get to this next level. And I'm going to look back down at my support, see where that is. Still okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so we can get more granular. And what I am seeing here is over the course of the early part of November, we had this area of consolidation here, and I'm going to find another layer of right here. So look at this. This is a good one, actually. And this is what actually brought this trade to my attention. All right, right here. Adjust that a little bit. Oop. Got to make sure you hold down shift the entire time when you're running a line or it will go crooked on you. All right, so let's move it down just a notch right there. Okay, so what am I looking at? I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can see. And this is really telling of how the market can telegraph big moves. All right, so right here at the bottom, right, you see this attempt to break into break through this level of resistance. And all these wicks are representative of failed attempts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different attempts failed. Right here, it got through. And what tends to happen when a coin or stock gets through resistance is it tends to run. It tends to keep going up to find the next level of resistance. So right here, it broke. And this is where you would buy. This is an entry. Let me highlight this for you. So it breaks right here, and that's a buy. Now, that's tough to always get. You have to be very quick in order to get a lot of these entries. So there's two that I like to look at. There's the breakout, which this one was, or if we zoom in a little further, there's what we call the pullback or the retrace, and I'm going to go down to a more granular chart here, about 30-minute, and we'll go back over to what we just found. There we go. Okay, so look at this. You see, this was the breakout, shot all the way up to about 500 Satoshis, and then look, it came down and retested. So you didn't miss your opportunity. In fact, there's 10% difference between where it broke out to and where it came back. So these are your two options when making an entry in a situation like this. So you buy the breakout. So let's say it broke 450, you buy 460, and you're in. Now, if it goes back below 450, this is where you could have a stop loss on to get out of your position because perhaps someone just fat fingered or there was a change in the market dynamic. Bitcoin took off and alts are suffering. So when it breaks out, you buy. And then when it comes down for a retest, it's actually an opportunity to add on to your position. If it breaks this support level and starts to break down, that's a good sign that you should get out. Maybe it was a false breakout. That happens. Now, this is a great entry right here. And look what happens. It runs up, comes back down, runs back up. So this is your support, and you have two entry opportunities here. Now up here, this is turned out to be our resistance. Now, would we have known that? Well, let's take a look back. Like hindsight's obviously 2020. You should have sold here, but let's take a look back and see if there's any key indicators that is an area of significant resistance here. So what I'm doing is I'm zooming back out into charts that are 1 hour duration, and look at this. Yeah, it looks like there was an indicator that this would be potential resistance. Look, not only that one, but all the way back here. This has been an area of resistance since September. So what this tells me is, okay, you have the breakout. Now, where am I likely to encounter significant resistance? And right here is an area of significant resistance. So if you want to do what's called swing trading, this is actually a good spot to take some off of your position. So when you're trading, one of the strategies I like to use is to get my entry cost down a little bit. So let's say I would have bought perfectly here at 450 just to keep things simple, and I would have sold half of my position at 575. Well, now when I rebuy it, my entry is maybe 400 instead of 450. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 10%, more than 10%, and over time that adds up. So let's say you traded ideally here, you got in here, you knew this was going to be resistance, you sold. Then what do? You put some orders back down low. Now it's not always going to come back and test resistance. It sometimes does. So you can maybe stagger the orders a little bit, maybe start at 470 with a fourth of position and add as it goes down. And again, it kind of tested, not quite 450, but close enough. Bounced back up, didn't quite make it. Came down here, tested multiple times along this support level. And then remember, this was when Bitcoin was running. So this is very telling to me, actually. When you have an altcoin that's able to weather a Bitcoin rally, especially as strong as the one that we just had, that means there's some really strong support here. So this is really telling to me that maybe this is got some, I don't know, some news, some rumors, something happening, or one of the above, that this potentially could be a breakout trade. And let's take a look. So this was back in November 19th. It bounced along here. Kind of ran up, didn't quite get to our resistance, came back down, and then you start seeing it coil up. It tested, failed, and it got here, and what happened? It flew through. So again, let's go zoom in a little bit. You could have bought here, or look, it came back down and retested. So what happens is your resistance that we busted through here at 573 now becomes your support. So we get through, we come back, we retest, and this former resistance should now be support, and it was. Great sign. And what happens? Well, I mean, it looks like it almost doubled in that timeline. So that is how you find an entry. You look for obvious support, obvious resistance, and then you look for when it's actually going to break out. In my opinion, people, especially new people in Bitcoin, are like, well, should I buy now? Should I wait? Well, there's often times that you'd rather buy at a higher price. So I would rather buy Stellar here at 580 than I would at 547. And why is that? Well, at 580, we've actually broken out of resistance, and now this resistance is support. So we're now at the bottom of the support resistance relationship, whereas here we're at the top. So, all things being equal, it's more likely to come down. So when you're looking for an entry, look for support resistance, look for breakouts when it goes through an area of resistance, and look to buy that pullback. Now, one thing you can do, because it's hard to manage all of these different coins at once, one thing you can do is use TradingView. TradingView is fantastic, and I would strongly recommend getting the highest level of subscription. What I do is I'll set an alert. So let's say this is my resistance. I'll put, add alert, and it would, condition crossing the value once, or you can do every time. I do an SMS. So I get a text every time something like this happens, and I have a number of alerts set up. So there's ways that you can optimize this whole thing and make it a lot easier for you to manage. But the first thing you need to do is understand how to read a chart. And this is the most basic of understanding, and something you have to understand when you're trading. Support, resistance. What does a breakout look like? There's so many times I talk to people and they'll look at a chart and be like, "Oh, look, it's forming a nice bottom here. This looks like a good entry." And most of the times they're trying to guess a bottom. Don't try to guess the bottom. Try to catch a falling knife is just going to get you cut. So this is a prime example of how you could have made multiple trades here. So you could have bought here, sold here, bought there, sold there, bought there, sold there. You never would have got back in over here, but then you would have bought again here or on the retrace. And then again, same process on the way up. We would have found this resistance previously and probably taken some off. So guys, this is how you get an entry. It's actually not as hard as you think. Buying anywhere in between is strictly guessing. It's okay if you want to be in something long term like Bitcoin. Like right now, support and resistance are I mean, the resistance is yet to be determined with the upside here, but we have support around 82, 8,400. There's another one where I think around 95. But if you want to be in long term, I mean, you pay up 5%. That's a lot, but long term with Bitcoin is probably nothing. So, prime example. This is what you should look for. I hope this was helpful. I will provide more detailed videos on how to find an entry level, maybe within this range at a later date. But I hope this kind of is going to help you start to read some charts on your own. All right, guys, take care.